Regulate emotion. You are irritated, you're distracted, you're tired. Perfectly understandable. I describe this scenario when I speak to people groups and then ask participants to share the strategies they use to deal with their feelings. Here's what they say. I'll leave my feelings at the door. I'm going to sit up front, good posture. I'll drink a lot of coffee. I'll focus on you and not let anything distract me. I'll draw. I'm just going to push through it. I'll have a cigarette in the parking lot. These answers have become quite fashionable. I'm going to breathe and be present. I'm going to be mindful. I'll pay for the best. I pray for the best. If I feel like that, I just try to go to the gym to soothe my emotion. Yes, regulate my emotion. Maybe you formed on a math quiz in the morning and you're afraid you're going to flunk and get grounded. Emotion regulation is at the top of a ruler hierarchy. It's likely the most complex of the 5 skills and the most challenging. It's nearly impossible to imagine what life would be like without the power to regulate our emotion. Every emotional response is a unique experience. What triggers an unpleasant emotion today may not even register tomorrow. Tomorrow, same Starbucks, but your emotional state is serene, so you happily gauge around the place and people watch while you wait. Up until now, all the ruler skills have been essentially dozen words. Now comes the hard part. Putting all the wisdom you gathered from the first 4 ruler skills into action. This is the nuts and bolts chapter, where the real work gets done. It's also where the rewards lie. The process by which individuals influence which emotions they have, when they have them, and how they experience and express these emotions. Our center is especially interested in how people develop constructive strategies that promote personal growth, foster and maintain positive relationships, and lead to both greater well-being and entertainment. Of all the skills, this is the one with the most moving parts. In a way, that makes it both the easiest and the hardest one to tackle. The number of specific strategies for regulation is really limitless, depending on the situation and the emotions involved. The strategies that work for you today might not work for you tomorrow, and the strategies that work for you might not work for you, for your partners or child. As I said earlier, our emotions flow in a continuous stream like a river and keep up with that we are constantly regulating them. It's how we maintain our balance and keep from being swept away by one strong feeling or another. We all know people who seem particularly unskilled at regulating their emotions. They're easily knocked off course by their feelings and routinely overreact on half of ways, or at the other extreme, they suppress their emotional responses so much that they seem cold and numb. They don't permit themselves to feel at all, which is just harmful as reacting in excess. So you see, you've been doing it all your life. You just didn't know it was a skill. A caregiver who reliably provides a physical and verbal comfort and the reassured infant teaches it that emotional distress is manageable. A caregiver who does not provide such support teaches the infant that he or she may be at the mercy of their emotions. In this way, co-regulation is the precursor to healthy self-regulation. In adult relationships, co-regulation can be intentional, as when it speaks soothingly to someone who upset or tries to inspire someone into action. You're jealous or furious or bored, and I automatically read the signals and my mood is altered. We're all constantly affecting each other's emotional state. But now calm and rational. But human minds and emotions are so neatly organized, and we don't process information one piece at a time. Often we regulate before we are even fully conscious of what we are feeling. Someone is rude to you at work, and then your brain instantly jolts you from a peaceful grin into the fierce red conduit of angry by activation, ready to defend your dignity. Without thinking, you take a deep breath and then get some distance. That's regulation, specifically implicit and automatic regulation. The first category is a strategy that literally keeps us alive. Breathing, specifically mindful breathing, helps us calm the body and the mind so we can fully present, and the rest reactive or overwhelmed by what's happening around us. The second category we'll call forward-looking strategies. This simply means that we anticipate something will cause an unwanted emotion and either steer clear of it or modify our physical environment. The third category is tension shifting strategies. This takes many forms, but all are based on the same principle, that we can temper the effect on the emotion by diverting our attention away from its source. It can be as simple as turning on the TV, walking away from a stressful encounter, or repeating a positive phrase to ourselves. The fourth we'll call cognitive reframing strategies. We first analyze whatever is triggering the emotional experience, and then find a new way of seeing it. Essentially, transforming our perception of reality as a way of mastering it. Finally, I'll introduce the meta moment, a tool which helps us act as our best selves would, as opposed to reacting and overreacting to emotional situations. I'd like you to take 2 minutes to pause, get comfortable, and breathe naturally. If it will help, you can time yourself. Begin now. How'd it go? Did you even do it, or did you just keep reading? If you did try it, how did it feel? Did you get impatient, anxious, bored? Did your mind wander? Maybe it was the first time you've taken a minute for yourself all day, and you feel calm and centered. Allowing our minds to be idle is a major challenge for many of us given our busy lives. And it's especially hard when we are faced with strong emotions such as anxiety, anger, and even excitement. Our brain responds to intense emotions by activating the sympathetic nervous system. Our heart rate goes up, stress hormones or endorphins are released, depending on the emotion, and we're pressured. We prepare to flee or freeze. Mindful breathing helps us to hit the brake on the activation of our stress response system by decreasing our heart rate. Breathing through the nose is helpful because mouth breathing tends to be faster and shallower. Think of a panting dog, which can react to the stress response system. And when we count, our breaths or repeat a calming phrase while breathing, we regain balance and control because area of the brain in charge shifts from the brainstem to the motor cortex. Breathing also helps us reset the automatic nerve system by activating the parasympathetic nerve system and inhibiting the sympathetic, excitatory one. How lucky am I to be in this position? There is nothing either good or bad, but they can mix it so. Intellectually engage the method of emotion regulation, cognitive reframing strategies, better known in the research literature as rephrasal. For our purposes, we use rephrasal as a way to reimagine or reframing whatever is triggering an emotional experience and that react instead of to new interpretation. He didn't mean to humiliate. I'm sorry. He didn't mean to humiliate me. You tell yourself that might help, at least now you believe he didn't intentionally hold you up to ridicule. He had a couple drinks too many, you reason. That could also lessen the sting. Now, the martini isn't at a fault. I'm being hypersensitive. It wasn't such a big deal. You decide. And that's possible. Maybe you're just in a tried and feeling more fragile than usual. Perhaps you're the only one in the room, but thanks to what he said was inappropriate. Reframing an incident calmed you down and prevented an ugly scene, so we can consider this is successful regulation of a very strong emotion or not. Same scenarios. You conduct the same self-talk to help you handle the situation without the melting down. Until you recall that it's the third time something like this hasn't happened in the past 2 months. And deep down, you believe that. Maybe his intention wasn't so pure, and then he took some satisfaction from everyone having a laugh at your expense. And he's been having a few many drinks and a little too often lately. Now you realize that you weren't being hypersensitive, and you know a person would have been outraged by what he said in the middle of a crowded party. This is why we must make the effort to be an emotion scientist. We need to check and wither ourselves regularly to evaluate our feelings and honestly, without judging ourselves for having them. Every time we believe we successfully employ a strategy to regulate our feelings, we have to ask, that may have worked for now, but what did it accomplish for the long run? As we all know, our best attempts at calm, thoughtful reflection work only when we feel in control of our emotions. If you are raging with resentment or crushed by disappointment, it's unlikely that you're capable of extended vision required to see a situation in new light. In that scenario, you first need to bring down your emotional temperature to lower your activation and give yourself the space to require the rational thought. Maybe you take a few deep breaths and a few steps back and walk around the block. Visualizing our best self redirects our attention away from the trigger and the tool of values. This helps us to choose a helpful regulation strategy, such as positive self-talk or reappraisal, and then respond accordingly. My positive boss was in a fire right back, and I embarrassed her in front of her colleagues who didn't comment like. A lot of us, many new and irritable personalities. But I didn't allow myself the pleasure. Instead, I took myself out of the moment, visualized my best self as a feeling master, and paused as though I were formulating a reply. In that small window of time, I calmed myself, then made a comment belittling her, and moved on. I'd love to connect with you later to hear your thoughts. I said. Nobody in this room knew how close I came to losing it. Truth is, a couple of years prior, I likely would have crumbled. The meta moment is not just for down-regulation unpleasant emotions. Sometimes it invests itself help us to stand up for what's right. Also during a speech, a colleague bullied me in an unusual way. I joked about the fact that I was bullied as a child. I hate to admit it, but my first impulse was to run outstage and deliver a flying drop kick to his head. I regret that I'm feeling like the middle schoolers are being pushed around in the locker room. But I took a meta moment and I waited until after this presentation when I went up to him and I said, I have no idea what motivates you to say those words. But it wasn't cool and you can't ever do it again. I count this in a victory for the meta moment. Or do you take a deep breath, evoke yourself best self? Think about the most effective strategy with this particular child, and calmly take action. 1. Sense the shift. You're activated, cut off the guard, or have an impulse to say, or do something that you might regret. There is a shift in your thinking, or physically, physiology or both. 2. Stop or pause. Create a space before you respond. Step back and breathe. Breathe again. 3. See your best self. 3. See your best self. You imagine your best self. You think of it as tips, or even imagine that helps your best self appear in the vivid detail. You might also think about your reputation. How do you want to be seen, talked about, and experienced? What would you do if someone you respect were watching? 4. Strategize and act. You reach into your ruler toolkit, for instance, positive self-talk or reframing, and choose the path that will support you in closing the gap between your triggered self and your emerging best self. Always last step. There are a few final aspects of regulation we need to consider. Because emotion regulation requires brain power, moving from automatic and unhelpful to deliberate, and a helpful strategy is hard work. It depends on seemingly unrelated factors, such as diet, exercise, and sleep. When you eat poorly, your minds don't function properly. Too much sugar or refined grain causes an blood glucose to spike and then plummet, which affects cognitive functioning and the self-control, especially around the healthy eating. Is a solution. Make sure you have some healthy snacks in your desk at work, or set a reminder on your phone to ensure you kneel every 3 hours or so. Too little physical activity has a negative effect on your mental capacity and moods. In one study, subjects were exposed to a stressor, and then half of the participants did aerobic exercise, while the others did not. The exercises reported feeling significantly less negative than the other group. Even anxiety and depression can be reduced by exercise. Accumulating research is showing how a regular yoga practice might be beneficial for both our mental and physical health. We all arrive in this world programmed differently where emotions are concerned. Each of us has a different threshold for being provoked, activated, aroused, startled. Some of us experience feeling more intensely than others. We recover from emotional reactions at different speeds. But these individual differences don't determine whether we will develop emotion skills. Research shows that even highly reactive kids who are raised in nurturing families can turn out just fine. There's a home where we grew up, where our emotional lives were formed. We are not born with emotional knowledge. We mostly respond to stimuli. We are hungry, we are cold, we are uncomfortable for the reason or another, and so we react. Nature provides the response to make sure we get the attention we need to survive infancy. Everything beyond that is learned in the nest. We carry those emotional patterns forward with us, the good and the bad, often replicating them. And in our new home, the cycle repeats, building the emotional foundations of the one where we started out. Given this, what steps can we take so create healthy home environments, places in where our children and the loved one will feel supported, valued, treasured, understood, heard, homes filled with patience and acceptance, and humor and joy. Few parents today would argue with the idea that their children will do best if they were loved. That wasn't always so. Early in the 20th century, the fields of child psychology and the development were divided over how best to raise children, especially on the merits of the strictness or leniency, discipline, or tenderness. The president of the American Psychological Association, John B. Watson, warned in 1915 that too much love and comforting was dangerous for children and that their lives would be spoiled by coddling. What those parents miss is that a focus on emotion skills is about real, practical skills. Promise to feel does mean obsessing over every time somebody is mean to us or ignores us. It's really just an opposite. Teaching the ability to get through those moments, to learn from them, and to continue to function normally. Emotion skills are an bulwark against an epidemic of anger, bullying, disengagement, anxiety, and dread in this country, especially among young people. They clear away the most persistent drags on our creativity, relationships, decisions, and health. Permission to feel strengthens. It's not always easy to face the truth about who we are and to reckon with our own and our children's emotional lives, but it is a whole lot better than the alternative, denial, overreacting, and so on. You teach your children to express their emotions by skillfully expressing yours. Conversely, if we are reluctant to express your feelings, or do so only sparingly, in as few words as possible, then that's what your children will learn to do when they grow up. This is why we adults need to be open and learning and practicing strategies in our own emotional lives and before we can support our kids' beliefs about feelings. Family researchers such as John Gottman and the development psychologists such as Ami Hart-Borstein have shown that parents who value emotions and tend to be aware of their children's feelings and are able to act like coaches. They respond with the threats of discipline when their kids express an anger or sadness, as that they see strong feelings as a central part of a healthy development. Parents who view emotions as harmful or destructive are the ones who command their children to suck it up and see their kids' emotional expressions as manipulative. Those are the same parents who mask their own emotions and send implicit messages that feelings are unimportant. Even when we do acknowledge others' emotions, we have to be careful about how we do so. Boys and girls often receive different messages about emotions from parents, and these gender differences tends to increase with age. Emotion vocabulary. Most of us are unaware of how important vocabulary is to emotion skills. As we can see, using many different words implies valuable distinctions. That we are not always simply angry, but are sometimes annoyed, irritated, frustrated, disgusted, aggravated, and so on. If we can discern the difference, that suggests that we can understand it either. It's the difference between a rich emotional life and an impoverished one. Your child will interpret the one you provide. In one study, researchers found that mothers who use more sophisticated language when talking or when feeling had children who are better at regulating their own emotions. The authors wrote, the ability to talk about one's own affective state has its most obvious importance for regulating affect, and is apart in less than others as a source of an aid or comfort. What that means, especially, is that if mothers and fathers use many words to describe emotions rather than just a few basic ones, their children will be better able to express their feelings to others. They'll also be more empathetic. More hours of screen time associated with the lower well-being in children and adolescents than higher uses in the show. Self-control and emotional stability, and that with as many high versus low use of screens are diagnosed with anxiety and or depression.